What's good, everybody? It's the Clown of a Cab Show. UFC 312, pretty interesting card. But overall, we look at 2025. This is probably one of the weakest cards yet. But let's start off with the championship main fight between Dricus Du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland, we know he's an interesting type of guy. He loves to speak his mind. He says some crazy things to the media. That's why he's kind of getting a lot of publicity out there. He's getting a lot of magazine time. He's getting more famous out there, which he's getting more money. And that's the entertainment business and the fight business. You got to sell the fight the best you can. And hats off to Sean Strickland. He's doing this great. It's a rematch. They fought before, and Sean Strickland lost by split decision, and it really was a close match between the two. I mean, we look at the striking. Yes, Sean Strickland outstruck Du Plessis 173 to 137, but Du Plessis had 6 takedowns of 2-minute control time, and I think that's ultimately why Du Plessis won the first round matchup with Sean Strickland. Now they can run it back. Du Plessis is the current middleweight champion. He's 22-2. And we look at Sean Strickland, he's been up and down, right? He won the belt, then he lost it immediately. But right now, Sean Strickland, he's 29-6 in his UFC career. His biggest wins are definitely by Israel Adesanya and Paulo Costa. We can say that, even though he did get knocked out by Alex Pereira pretty badly. But we look at Du Plessis. He beat Robert Whittaker. He beat Izzy. He beat Darren Till years ago, who's out of the UFC. So this is going to be an interesting matchup. The winner gets Chimaev. So we already know that, and I can't wait for that fight to happen. But right now, who am I going to pick between Sean Strickland and Du Plessis? And I'm leaning more towards Du Plessis right now. I think he's the overall better fighter. I think he's going to resort, like he did in the first fight, to wrestling. I think he's going to shoot for takedowns against Sean Strickland. I think Du Plessis is too smart to say, you know what, I'm just going to stand the whole time and bang with Sean Strickland. I think that's a mistake. I think you don't want to stand the whole time with Sean Strickland. Even though we saw in the Alex Pereira fight, he got sparked, but that's all it takes, man. Is one mistake is all it takes in the UFC. So right now, I'm leaning more towards Du Plessis. He's the current champion. He's minus 200 right now. We look at Sean Strickland. If you're going to take a money line, he's plus 175. That might even jump to like plus 195. Plus 200 come fight time. A lot of people will take Sean Strickland. He is the American. He likes to talk a big game. Kind of imitating like a Conor McGregor type of guy where he's going to say whatever he wants to say, right? He's going to say whatever he wants to the media, which is nice. I love Sean Strickland in that way, but I'm talking the overall fight here. 25 minutes inside the octagon. Who is the better fighter overall? And that is Du Plessis. And I think, like I said, Du Plessis is going to shoot for takedowns. And the winner gets Chimaev. So this is a huge fight for both guys. I think Du Plessis understands what's at stake. And what's interesting about this fight is Du Plessis, he really wanted to fight Chimaev. He thought, Sean Strickland should get the winner of that fight because he wanted Chimaev, which speaks huge volumes, right? Because we've seen Chimaev, probably the best first-round fighter of all time in the UFC, even though he does have some leaks in his fight game where he does get fatigued later on in the fights. But Du Plessis, man, he's the champion for a reason, man. I think he's super smart. I think he has a better team around him than Sean Strickland, and I think that's going to just elevate him a little bit in this fight. Expect to mix it up. Sean Strickland, expect him to come out hot. Expect him to throw big hooks, looking for a knockout because he is the underdog. He's not the champion. He lost the belt to Du Plessis. So we look at Sean Strickland and realize, hey, bro, you're going to have to mix it up because throwing jabs for 25 minutes, you're not going to beat the champion by just throwing jabs here and there the whole time, the whole fight. You're just not going to be able to do it. You just got to mix it up. Maybe shoot for takedowns, but I just think Du Plessis, man, the overall, he's just a better fighter than Sean Strickland. That's why I'm going Dricus Du Plessis in this championship fight, even though the whole card's kind of weak in a way at UFC 312. But, we look at it from a stylistic standpoint. The two championship fights are amazing. And we go to the women's championship fight, Zhang Wei Li versus Tatiana. It's interesting. Tatiana's 11-0. She's taking the long road. We go back all the way to 2012. She competed in the Olympics in wrestling, but she suffered a neck injury while doing that, so she couldn't compete. She did it in training, and then she's been battling injuries her whole career. UFC 266, she had to pull out with a shoulder injury. UFC 298, she suffered a knee injury. Her knee was swelling up. So Tatiana's been in and out of just adversity. She's battled through adversity, and it's interesting that she is the favorite right now. She's minus 110, minus 120 come the fight, and I think that's because of her wrestling background. We look at Zhang Weili, one of her weaknesses is getting taken down. She did. Rose Namajunas, she took her down many times, and I remember watching those fights. I've seen about 5 or 6 Zhang Weili fights, and I will say her weakness is her takedown defense. She has great striking, great leg kicks. She does a lot of great things, but it makes sense. I looked really into this fight and said, why is Zhang Weili the champion right now, who's 25-3, money line, she's plus money. She's plus like 105, 110 plus money right now, which is interesting for a champion to be underdog, slightly underdog. But I think Tatiana, the adversity she's battled through her whole career, her whole life right now leading up to this moment, I think she's got to seize this moment, and I think she's going to shoot for takedowns. She's the bigger, taller woman in this fight, and I think that's going to play huge advantage to her compared to Zhang Weili. Now, if Zhang Weili wins this fight, it's going to be by defending the takedowns and standing up with her the whole fight. That's how you got to win. If you're Zhang Weili, you got to understand, I'm not trying to grapple with this lady. She's she can submission. She could choke me out. She could do so many things on the ground where I'm at a disadvantage. So I think Zhang Weili, she has to keep this fight standing, and if she does, she will win this fight. She could arguably win by knockout if she keeps this fight standing, throws leg kicks at Tatiana's weak knees. That's what you're going to have to do. But I think Tatiana, the bigger woman, the taller, the reach, I'm leaning more towards Tatiana right now. Which kind of sucks because I've seen Zhang Weili fight many times on some big cards in her UFC career. She's put on some great performances, but like I said, her weakness is definitely her ground game. She doesn't want to go to the ground. And Tatiana, she's an experienced wrestler. She's a great jiu-jitsu as well. I think Tatiana's going to mix it up and expect her to shoot for takedowns. She's the taller, bigger woman, and that's a huge advantage in these fights, especially in the championship fights. Typically, the longer reach, the taller, the bigger person is more likely going to win, especially if they're a great wrestler. Because we look at wrestlers in the UFC, that's one of the best things that you could do. I'd rather have a wrestler come into the UFC and learn striking than a striking person and then learn wrestling later on, years down the line. It's just too late. You got to understand wrestling. You got to understand this because if the control time's in her favor, she's more likely going to win the fight. And she kind of fights like a Khabib type of fighter where she's going to shoot for takedowns. That's just how it's going to go. Like 100%, she's going to shoot for takedowns. She does not want to stand with her. And her coaches know that. They're smart. They understand that, hey, if we win this fight, it's going to be on the ground. 100%. That's how we're going to do it. She's already got a lot of submission wins in her career. So I'm going Tatiana over Zhang Weili. I hate to do it. I really do. I want to see Zhang Weili win. I've seen so many fights of Zhang Weili. She's put on some great performances in her UFC career. But I'm looking at it from a stylistic standpoint, and I understand that, hey, if wrestling is more better than striking. That's just how it goes. We even look at the history of the UFC. We look at Conor McGregor versus Khabib, UFC 229. Why was that Trump? Because the wrestling department is better than the striking. However, if both fighters are great at wrestling, it cancels it out. Then it's who's the better striker. That's what it boils down to. But right now, I hate to go against Zhang Weili. I hate to bet against Zhang Weili. But right now, I'm betting against the champion, which is dangerous. We got to understand the champion should have some type of edge in these championship fights. She's more experienced. She's been through the trenches. She's been through tricky spots where she's gotten out of Zhang Weili. So hats off to Zhang Weili. I hope I'm wrong in this prediction because I love Zhang Weili, what she's done for the UFC, just a champion that she's been. She's been a champion for a long time, but I think Tatiana's going to seize the moment, understanding her whole past, understanding that she had to pull out of many fights before because of injuries, understanding that she could have gave up years, like a decade ago, from the neck and knee injuries. She could have gave up, but she didn't. She continued to fight, continued to never give up. So I'm going Tatiana by submission over Zhang Weili in this championship fight. I can't wait for that matchup. Let's go, Tatiana, take off. And then the main fight, definitely, like I said, I'm going Du Plessis over Sean Strickland. However, if Sean Strickland wins this fight, it's going to be by knockout. You're going to have to knock out Du Plessis. You cannot really just, throw the jabs. Sean Strickland's going to have to mix it up because the same fight that Sean Strickland fought against Du Plessis a year or two ago, the rematch, it's just not going to work, bro. You're going to have to mix it up. Throwing jabs, throwing left, right jabs are not going to work. You're going to have to mix it up. throw some leg kicks. I don't really, when I see Sean Strickland fight, he doesn't throw a lot of leg kicks. He's going to have to mix that up as well in his arsenal. But overall, I'm looking at it from a stylistic standpoint. I understand Du Plessis is the champion for a reason, and Du Plessis is really looking at like, hey, I should be fighting Chimaev right now, which is crazy to think, right? Chimaev, that is insane, but I can't wait to that fight. That fight's probably going to happen in the summer or fall time with Du Plessis if he handles business tonight, and I think he will. I'm going Du Plessis, man. I'm going Du Plessis, Tatiana in this card, and it just makes sense to me. Do not bet on Sean Strickland because you hear what he says on Twitter or you hear what he says to the media and all these crazy things. Yes, he's selling the fight, great, but it's strictly business here. And I'm going Du Plessis over Sean Strickland, either money line or you could go knockout here. I think Du Plessis can knock out, or he's going to win, by points, by just taking him down, utilizing the ground and pound, utilizing the control time for Du Plessis. But overall, man, I'm going Du Plessis. There's no way I'm going to go Sean Strickland, even though it'd be cool to see Sean Strickland win, right? Like, I wouldn't be mad whatsoever. Sean Strickland loves to speak his mind. He loves to say interesting things. But overall, man, I'm going Du Plessis over Sean Strickland, man. I cannot wait for that matchup. And then UFC 313 is next month. We got Alex Pereira versus Ankalaev. That's going to be great. Then we got Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker. UFC 313 is going to be great. And then hopefully in the summertime, we see the biggest fight that UFC can offer today, Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. That's what all the UFC fans want to see, the casual MMA fans. We want to see Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. There's no way around it. Like everybody's saying, Jon Jones is dunking Aspinall. I don't think so. I think they're going to come to agreement. Dana White, Hunter, they're going to figure out a business decision and say, hey, Jon Jones, this is what we're going to give you. Jon Jones wants 30 M's. Give Jon Jones 30 M's, man. He's been built this company. He's been at the top for 10 plus years. We could arguably say 15 years at the top in MMA is absurd. It is crazy to think about. The GOAT Jon Jones. So give him what he wants, Dana White. I cannot wait. But UFC 312 is here. Du Plessis, Tatiana. Those are my lock picks. It's the Cloud with Cap show. Let's go!